Thursday, 7th of September. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Are there any? I believe it's working. Hopefully everyone can hear. We can turn out a bit perhaps. Any other apologies for absence? No, I can't. Which is the most important. Is that better?
Oh, yes.
That's better. Good. Which takes us to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any? Well, good. Which takes us to item 3, minutes from the previous meeting on pages 4 to 28 of the pack. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Very good. Are there any matters arising from those minutes? Which takes us to item 5, written questions from the public. First of which is from Mr. Wilson. First, Councillor Mr. Wilson. Would you like to read your question? I'll take it as read.
I'll read this.
Sorry? Far away.
On 5th of June 2023, Natural England emailed Harlow Council stating that should Harlow Council wish to consider horse riding within Harlow Woods, it would require adequate resource management from the Council. Please can the Council detail the additional resources and resulting costs that would be required to permit this activity?
Councillor Durst.
Thank you for your question. The Council has arranged a meeting between Council officers and Natural England staff for later in September. At this meeting, it is expected that advice will be given regarding the mitigating measures that will be required to allow horse riding in a triple SR site whilst protecting the site from further damage caused by the activity. If any affordable mitigating measures are identified, the Council will then submit a notice of proposal in course, carry out permitted operations required by Natural England, consent on site of the triple SR site to Natural England seeking consent to allow horse riding in the Harlow Woods triple SR site. Natural England has 4 months to consider the proposal and a response once it has been achieved.
Do you have a supplementary, Mr. Wilson?
I have a supplementary here, but I'm happy to retract the second question I have.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, supplementary, yeah.
Are you able to confirm the dates of the meeting, as our last communication did not give a date, and confirm our invitation as per the minutes of July 13th and separate emails from councillors?
Currently, I can confirm there has been emails regarding a proposed date later in September, but we are awaiting a date from Natural England.
And are we invited? Right. Perfect, thank you.
We'll just take the second question as read. Which takes us to item 6, written questions from councillors, the first of which is from Councillor Vince. Would you like to read your question, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. At the last full council meeting, the leader of council himself declined to comment on the proposals proposed by the South office. He stated he would wait until the formal consultation period was over. As the consultation closed on the 1st of September, we are now asked what submission Harlow Council will be making with regards to the proposed closure.
Thank you for your question. I've heard concerns of many residents, particularly vulnerable and stable residents, in terms of these proposals, and I'll be writing to Roger Angler later to raise these concerns. I'll share a copy of that letter with Councillor Hastings. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you for that, Chair, and I appreciate you sharing that letter with me. But can I clarify, will you be writing in favour of closing particular offices or in favour of keeping them open?
I will be writing to raise the concerns of the residents which have been raised. Which takes us to question 2, Councillor Vince. Would you like to read your question? Say that to me.
I can take that, actually.
Yeah. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, Chair, and genuinely thank you for taking this matter seriously. It's disappointing to be comments from Chair last in the way they weren't taken very seriously. Can I ask, because it is a very serious issue, and this issue affects the livelihood of high blood pressure drugs in our town. Can I ask that you bring an update to this to the next cabinet meeting, just so we're aware of what the situation is, and you know what we're doing to ensure that these taxi drivers, while they are operating within the capital license, are properly regulated. I think it's really going across my head a little bit, but I know it's fairly that actually, you know, credit to higher licensing, and they're our licensing, not for ownership of the share of licensing, that we particularly, you know, monitor our tax control.
We'll take that as the question. I'm more than happy to bring update in to the next meeting through communications from you. Takes us question 3 from Councillor Tony Edwards. Let's read that or take that straight.
This is to Councillor Michael Harlow, portfolio of economic development. Can you please provide an update on the progress or otherwise of the required Section 106 agreement which broadly started?
Thank you. Draft Section 106 has been signed and agreed. However, the County Council have raised a number of matters with the applicant, which Harlow Council understands were not previously identified. The planning and legal teams are liaising, and thereafter the County Council and the applicant with a view to clarifying outstanding issues so that permission can be issued without delay.
Supplementary, Councillor Edwards?
Firstly, given that so far all has been achieved by Strawberry Star appears to be demolition, dereliction, rat infestation, and rubbish, which is the current state of the site. Could you please, in plain English, explain to me what the final sentence of that paragraph actually means? It says the planning and legal teams are liaising, and thereafter the County Council and applicant with a view to clarifying outstanding issues so that permission can be issued without delay. The sentence makes no sense, so could you please explain to me what it actually means?
Yes, I'll
I'd be delighted. When a planning consent is granted, it is subject to various things, including an agreement on the Section 106. The draft Section 106 goes with the planning application. It is then the responsibility of the applicant and the various councils to then agree with the fine detail of the Section 106, which is then finalised. And when that's all finalised, we can then issue the planning permission, and they can then start their work.
There's no further supplementary, so that's it. Which takes us to item 7, which is communications for the leader, for which I have a few. Since the last cabinet meeting, we have shown that this council is delivering for Harlow on each of our 5 priorities. We said we would fix council housing, and since the last meeting of cabinet, the backlog has significantly fallen, and over 7,700 housing repairs have been completed since the 1st of June. That is enormous and brings the backlog down below pre-COVID levels, and we are well on track to clear that backlog this year. We have now appointed a contractor to carry out 100% internal and external stock condition survey on council properties for the first time in a decade to help us both better maintain and invest in our housing stock. We are well underway with a full drains-up review of our housing allocations policy and procedures which we will shortly consult on, which will be a radical overhaul of the way we allocate Harlow's council homes. On our priority to fix council housing, we are delivering on our second priority, to restore pride in Harlow. There's been great strides made since the last cabinet meeting. The new landscape maintenance and street cleansing working practices have been rolled out town-wide. We're massively upgrading our roundabouts, estate renewal projects such as bush fair renewal, and the restoration of our underpasses is included, and significantly more investment has been poured in to restore pride in Harlow. We promised to rebuild our town, and yet again, since the last cabinet meeting, great strides have been made. Acacia House is finally being polished, and I look forward to a certain councillor correcting the record tonight, but it was indeed this administration which bought Acacia House, contrary to his belief, and it's now being demolished. More council house building schemes have gained planning permission, and our groundbreaking regeneration partnership has agreed to draft business plan and is now in action in record time, so much so that other authorities are asking us how we do it. Our fourth priority is secure investment in Harlow. Since July, we have again delivered a pace with a new business website launched for local SMEs. Work is now concluding on securing multi-million-pound investment in the Innovation Park, and people are once again discovering Harlow in the literal sense of the words. And finally, on our priority to improve council services, we are making great progress. New ways of decision-making based on evidence with options is ingrained in our way of working. New service standards are coming forward and great strides have been made to improve customer service, all whilst maintaining strong financial management. We are able to propose yet further investment into these 5 priorities because of the strong improvement way we are running our finances. So much so that for the first time in years we are due to complete the year within budget. On each of our 5 priorities we are delivering, and I look forward to Cabinet making more decisions this evening to deliver for Harlow residents. The final 2 items I have to communicate this evening is first about the genuinely world-class event Harlow is hosting Finish Off tomorrow, which I very much hope to see as many residents and councillors at as possible. I would like to pay tribute to all the officers, and particularly the officer working group that has first of all secured that event here, and second of all worked so hard to make that event a success. So we'd also like to pay particular tribute to the Chief Executive, who I know has taken great pride and passion in this event and has driven that. And the final thing I'd like to do, although she's not here this evening, is to pay tribute to an officer that will shortly be retiring, who has worked at this council for a great number of years, and that's Julie Houston. And for those councillors that have worked with Julie in your time in this role, you will know above all else her passion for Harlow, which comes out in absolutely everything she does as a resident of the town. And you know, I think we can all say that as councillors of all political colours, who better place Harlow is for the work she has done, whether it be on the enterprise zone, town's fund bid, levelling up fund bid, or anything over the great many number of years that she's been involved. Harlow is a much richer place as a result of her work. And I think therefore it's right that we pay tribute to her this evening. Which concludes my communications, takes us to item 8, decisions, which there are.
Would you mind labelling and also a formal acknowledgement and appreciation for Julie's work? Because certainly as a campaigner and an experienced councillor, I've worked with Julie for a number of years at Harlow Law, and I think her knowledge, her experience, her networking is going to be dreadfully missed by this council. She made things happen behind the doors that no one else would. Her communication skills were excellent. She seemed to always have the finger on the pulse of knowing the right time to say yes, but also the right time to politely say no. So certainly on behalf of the Labour Group, we would like to sincerely express our gratitude and thanks for what Julie has brought to this town and what she has brought to this council. And we will be worse off losing her.
Thank you, Councillor. As I said, there's no petitions item 8, which takes us to item 9. Recent relevant decisions taken by the lead deputy, the portfolio holder for noting, are they noted? Which takes us to item 10. Financial performance quarter 1, 23-24, which was published as part of a supplementary agenda item. Is that proposed? Councillor Leffard, we've got a seconder for that. Councillor Harper, Councillor Leffard, would you like to introduce the item?
Yes, well, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Well, firstly, I'd like to just let you all know and hope you appreciate the new format presentation we're using for the financial performance review. It's the first time we've used this. Having looked at some of the peer groups, peer authorities, we realised that we needed to improve it, to make it more transparent, more intelligible, and put some of the graphics help in this context. Going forward, we will be producing the financial reports not quarterly but monthly, and that will start with the end of this month. That will enable us, hopefully, to keep much closer track on how we're doing, and also will enable us to identify any issues coming up and to react to them much quicker. The new format also includes, when we're proposing that options are presented. And this again is a useful tool to ensure that we are covering all the corners. Moving on now, I'm pleased to inform you that the general fund is aligned with the budget for Q1. At a time throughout the country when many councils are under huge financial pressures, the latest being Birmingham is entering into Section 114. And it's already been announced that possibly up to 100 councils this year will struggle to close their balance their budgets. Here in Harlow, we're pleased to report that we are running our general fund within budget at the end of Q1, even with a small surplus of 140,000. And we also forecast that at the end of the year, it will be balanced. This has been achieved, notwithstanding increased overheads, energy costs, insurance premiums, and reduced car parking income. We've sought to make savings and efficiencies without impacting on both our statutory and unique discretionary services. We've also been active in restructuring our capital and non-housing capital programs so as to align them fully with the 5 priorities of this council. Everything in respect to the finance is driven by the need to achieve the objectives stated. We've managed to generate new forms of revenue, primarily from the acquisition of the Harvey Centre, form above expectations, and is looking to generate even more going forward. We've also had the roundabout sponsorships, which has been taking place, as you will probably notice, around the town. And further initiatives will be divulged in the near future, similar to these, of new commercialisation opportunities, which will not require investment, nor expose the council to any risk. We're investing record amounts in housing and housing repairs, and, sorry, just 1 second. And we are announcing as well next in Q2 and Q3 the new house building programs which have been long awaited.
And I understand, Councillor Leclerc, there's also some amended added
Yes.
recommendations.
Yes.
Proposing those as part.
Yes, actually, thank you, Chair. An amendment has been, a supplementary paper has been circulated regarding the demolition of garages and the allocation of 1.6 million, which is not additional funding, it is actually a change of use of funds. So I would like that to be taken with the main motion if possible.
Thanks, Councillor Leclerc. Are there any questions?
Councillor Harlow.
Some may be surprised to ask this question, but there's a £61,000 increased projection on the cost of the street lighting in terms of our payment to Essex County Council. Given that nearly 5,000 of our 6,500 street lights in Harlow have now been changed to LEDs, which are 60% cheaper to operate, what is the actual direction of this cost?
I was only going to say the direction of the cost will very much coming down, with the reduction of cost of providing the service. I'm meeting the leader of Essex County Council at 9:30 on Monday morning. There should be the first item of discussion.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Yes, the actual figure was based on an earlier forecast of energy prices made at the time when we set the budget, which at that time was much higher. Now that we've undertaken these changes, we expect quite convincingly that these will fall, and we will review it for the next period. It's interesting to note that although Harlow buys this, which doesn't apply to the street lighting, through our own electricity use, we buy ours in block, we buy forward for a package for a period, whereas Essex intends to buy, appears to buy spot, so that also has an effect.
Further questions?
Could you just clarify, there is a near shortfall of 500 in rents in terms of housing dwelling rents. Could you give an explanation on that, please?
Yes, thank you for that question. Part of that was due to slightly, let's say, mistaken projection on the voids. So it is actually less. We overestimated the number of voids. In fact, the number of voids is coming down, and coming down much faster. Our voids before were about turnaround times 90 to 120 days. We're now down to 26 days. So that figure is inflated by forecast was no longer really relevant. So we expect it to be lower, and the trend will be lower going forward.
Yeah, I have one other. What is the housing IT, which is referred to in the housing and commentary appendix A, please?
There's a number of strands to that. I'll take them in chronological order. The first being upgrades to the system which our own housing team used called Orchard in terms of the process, the asset management side. That's one of the things I said earlier on. Was about stock condition survey that we're carrying out. We're upgrading our IT in terms of asset management to ensure that that is working as effectively as possible. But also part of it, in the most simplistic way of explaining it, is that ensuring our system talks with the HCS system, which will again significantly improve the service for tenants across the town. And the third part, which is the part that will run over into the next financial year, which is referenced, is a significant change in our IT system in terms of housing allocations. So as things stand, when someone applies for a council property, the usual time in terms of an answer they'll receive is about 16 weeks. That's for their application, which is manually processed at the moment, to be answered. At that point, they may find out that they've in fact been declined, which is obviously not favourable, and that they've waited 16 weeks for that, usually with their housing need. What the upgrade to IT will do is make that an automatic process, and therefore, when these IT upgrades are complete in the next financial year, when someone applies for a property through that process, it will be done automatically. As soon as they complete their application, they will be told whether they're accepted or not and allocated into the according band. So it's a massive upgrade to our IT system and services accordingly. And that's why that part in particular is going to take a bit longer. But they are serious upgrades which are well overdue. Do you have any further questions?
Yeah, just one last one. There's reference to which development oh, sorry, beg your pardon, sorry. There's reference to which elm actually the finance later. Can you explain why this is?
Is it? I think it's probably on hatch.
Elm hatch, sorry.
Yeah, by all means. The only reason being is that the plan application is in at the moment, but it was the scheme had undergone further variation, and particularly on the cost control side. So it's taking place somewhat later than we expected. Yeah. And therefore finance needed slightly later.
Sorry, yes, and in fact it will be phased in towards the end of this year, and most of the carry over to 24.
The intention is that it'll be on site for January 24. Councillor Sears.
The report states that there is a projected to be favourable variance in the budget, which I understand the council has delivered all services this year in its allocated budget. Are you able to say when the last time the council projected to do this?
The last time a report came to Cabinet projecting favourable variance, it wasn't achieved. It was in December 2020. So in terms of when the council last asked or completed year-end favourable variance, I'm not aware of, but I'm sure it's been a great number of years.
I will check that. I suppose we also have to make some allowance as well for the COVID period. But if you're happy, Councillor Steele will get a written party.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions. First one is increasing insurance premiums have been offset by a reduction in staffing costs. If these continue to rise, how will you cover these in the future?
Good question. At the moment, we are very much at the mercy of the market. People shop around, obviously, for other insurance premiums, but so far, from what I understand, we've recovered ourselves for the year, some going even further. And given that inflation seems to be coming down now, we don't envisage that as being an ongoing problem.
Thank you.
Councillor
At the moment, I believe we've got something like 18.5 million right to buy funds tucked away somewhere. With short-term interest rates rising, what have we done with that money? Are we making a decent return on that money?
Okay, well, this actually comes on to the next page, which is on the treasury, but I'm going to have to take it now. In fact, it might. I'll go on to treasury then, if you like. Chair, is that possible? Okay, our funds are invested prudently within the treasury strategy and risk management profiles, which means that most of our investments are in AA or AA plus rated investments. We use Arlene Close, who are one of the leading advisors to local governments, although we make our own investment decisions. Now we also are very mindful of liquidity as well. So at the moment today we have about 30 million funds, mostly invested in investment grade market funds, which we can switch as well. But just to answer the main point of your question, we're achieving rates of between 5 and 5.5% per annum, which is very good, particularly on the risk-weighted basis.
Thank you. My next question is the Water Gardens car park and the reduced income of 170,000. Could you tell us what the reason for that is, and is there any update on how we're going to deal with it?
Well, part of it is still, I'd say, the legacy of COVID. I mean, we won't even consider these present works because they don't cover the period we're talking about. One of the things that is also an impact on this, even though it is picking up now, we are seeing some recovery, is the discounts or special concessions offered by some of the retailers. We're checking actually to ensure that they are complying with the terms of the agreements with Water Gardens. But there's nothing you can do really to force people to come park here. But we have noticed, for example, Asda have been handing out tickets willy-nilly without any, certainly not within the terms of it. So this has been brought to their attention, the Water Gardens owners.
Just to clarify, the projected figure is over the whole financial year.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So it does include that period, and I'm sure it's speculation about a retail store which may be doing such a thing and not accusation.
Any further questions?
I understand we spent £200,000 on water contingency plans for the playhouse and the museum. Was this in the original budget or has it come along? And what was the reason for this?
Just to clarify, we haven't spent £200,000 proposing to, or up to. It's as a result of some tests that were carried out, wasn't projected in the budget, which we've seen taken this evening, and therefore it's come forward as an in-year new capital project in terms of some issues with the systems in both of those venues, and thus we should be taking some action to deal with them. Although I would stress that there is no immediate danger as such as a result of that. So very fortunate.
One more question. My final question is, it's asked earlier on Elmhage. you're proposing to spend £3.3 million on this. Could you show me who and how will benefit in Harlow from this expenditure?
Well, the dwellings that are proposed as part of that scheme, as is proposed in the planning application, is for people currently on our housing needs register, and therefore obviously they would be benefactors of that. I would say for those of you who have perused the planning application, you will see the extremely high quality of the scheme, and I think that will be strongly welcomed by local residents and will be a significant addition to the conservation area at Nextdoor Berry, and will without doubt be a benefit to every Harlow resident.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Vince, for the sake of some variety.
Phase 12, it says earmark reserves down by 5.5 million across the last 2 years. Can you give me some indications of the reason behind that?
5.5 billion.
All right. Yes. 27 million.
I think you'll find that the main item was actually relating to the regeneration, and that was expected. That's the biggest item in there. You'll see that on. I don't know if you've seen this one.
No, it's not just referring to the earmark reserves, page 12.
Yes, it is. That is.
Just while you're looking at papers, there was, as you'll be aware, a serious review of the earmark reserves for the previous financial year, which you'll be aware subsequent to the action proposed and voted through by full council meant a reduction in those earmark reserves because they weren't required, and therefore there was no reason to hold on to taxpayers' money if you don't need it, and therefore a good Conservative administration passed the UK's greatest
To answer the question,
I'll just go finish last night. And that caused part of the reduction you referred to, but perhaps Councillor Eckhart can answer.
yeah, actually, okay, thank you, Chair. I mean, if you look at Appendix F, showing as I said, regeneration enterprise reserve stood at 6 million and 89. We used 5.3 million, which is part of the regeneration program. So I don't think that is a cause for concern. In fact, our reserves are well above any statutory requirement within budget. So I continue to invest into our 5 priorities, of which regeneration is an important one.
Councillor Vince, other question?
Yeah, I didn't say anything, so I'll just ask a question. Phase 20 is Councillor David Carter's highlighted. Part of the reason there's an underspend, or we'll call it an in-year subtractive pressure, is to go to that, is because of staff vacancies, which is obviously a concern. I just wondered, Councillor Carter quickly raised it, if those vacancies filled, there won't be a subtractive pressure, but a decreased pressure. I just wondered, is the intention to fill those staffing vacancies that are currently just vacant?
Yeah, Paul Councillor answers. There won't be an increased pressure because we're already over 1 quarter through the financial year, and obviously if they've not been filled for that period, that money's not been spent. There won't be an increased pressure. There'll just be. I presume these figures are largely based on those vacancies being filled.
Yes.
And therefore, this is what we're, in answer to your question, proposing to fill vacancies, and this will be the in-year subtractive pressure as a result of that.
Further to that, I believe you and I both spoke with the Director of Governance today.
Yeah.
And went through the fact that several of these vacancies are actually going through interviews and are actively being pursued. So just wanted to add that point.
No, thank you. And part of my concern, recognising I had that conversation with the government, just obviously some of those roles will be filled internally, so you still have actually some.
Yes.
Can I just clarify then, because this is quite an important point you've made here, you're saying that these this document is saying what the bottom line would be if those vacancies were filled tomorrow, or they saying what would be if those vacancies were filled in 6 months' time. Because what you said is that you're saying that this is based around they're not being vacancies moving forward, they're just vacancies up until now. Is that what you're suggesting? That's my question. So are you saying that if vacancies aren't, you get what I'm going at, if vacancies aren't filled for 6 months, say, for example, we know they are, but actually there will be an increase?
Well, I get it again. It's a projection of where we're likely to be at the end of the year, perhaps. I don't know if the Director of Finance wants to comment on how these figures are arrived at.
Happy to, Chair. So the figures in the table presented to the Cabinet based on budget holders and service managers' predictions for where they expect their overall expenditure to be at the year end. In terms of vacancies, that will include decisions about when those vacancies occur, when they may be filled, and therefore what the saving may be represented in the forecast. So some will be filled as we progress through the year, some may remain vacant if they prove difficult to be filled through the recruitment process. But this is the position at the moment based on the budget holders and the managers' projections on their current vacancies they have.
So I'm sorry, I just want to get this clear. So what you're saying is this is kind of prediction of where we'll be some of the vacancies filled, but not all. Is that what you're kind of saying? So what is the department's predicting where we'll be at the end of the year? But that's not guaranteeing every single vacancy is filled. That's because you're not saying, are we? You're saying
The most granular level we can get to in terms of the people that are recruiting for said vacancies, this is their best prediction of where we're likely to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to, that's slightly what you said, Chair, because you said there's specifically filled, that's what I'm just trying to clarify that.
No, what I'm referring to, you said there would be an increased pressure, there wouldn't be an increased pressure. Councillor.
Is any analysis being done of the effects of those having those vacancies? We frequently Council talks about no effect on frontline, no effect on services, etc. But surely, if the council is carrying vacancies, and certainly if it's carrying vacancies for any length of time, that we can't fill them, it must be, by definition, have an effect on the services provision. And my question therefore is any analysis being done of the vacancies and the effect on the service provision? If we're saying it's having no effect, then you then raise the question, why do you need to fill the post?
Well, to answer the question, it's not saying there's no effect, otherwise, as you say, it wouldn't be recruited. In terms of analysis, it's done on an ongoing basis by the right leadership team and service managers feeding into that. So absolutely, there's a review of effects on that ongoing. There's many examples we could talk about all evening about what other interventions have been made if posts have proved difficult to recruit to, or what it is we're offering to the market and whether that's sufficient or whatever the case may be. So it absolutely is an ongoing issue that's looked at all the time by the council's team. I don't know if there's anything more to add to that.
Yes, and also some of these situations have given us a basis to look at restructuring as well. Again, which will be judged on a case-by-case basis.
Is it Councillor Edwards? So if I can just come back to that, but is there any analysis of that being given in a coherent format back to the Cabinet or back to the Council so we can see what we're saying seems to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis here or there or whatever. There's no transparency in that. How do we get transparency across the board?
As you'd be aware, the operation running the council is responsibility for the head paid service and thereafter officers within. And if there are any services that are being impacted by such vacancies, that would be brought to the attention of councillors. All councillors can scrutinise that off their own back. At the moment, any such areas where there is an impact on service that has been raised with the relevant cabinet members or cabinet as a whole and joint cabinet and senior management meetings. So yes, there absolutely is an answer question. Councillor Leeds.
So where have the impact been on services caused by those vacancies? You said this has been shared over the last 6 months. Where has that been a problem? In your initial address, Chair, you told us that you were very glowing about what the council are doing, which is we know impact on services, but you just suggested that there has been some impact on services. I'm not saying you've dealt with those issues, but there obviously have been some issues which are just situation, just wondering, can you give us some idea as to what those services have been impacted by the subject to the other?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to write to you with such an update. Councillor Harlow?
Not a question, but something that I feel should be said. We're currently facing very difficult economic times, high interest rates, problems abroad, and you've frozen our council tax. Despite all this,
Comments for the next step.
I hope
We're not on comments. Question. We do. I'll go to Councillor Sagan and I'll come back to Councillor others. Councillor
Councillor, my question to you is obviously we are at the moment running a grant to get personal sums up on council.com. So what has the impact of us, and can you say what the residents have felt, the fact that we've frozen the council tax since May 2021?
Are you asking me what the benefit has been to them, or what?
Yeah, in their pocket, what they felt.
I'd just say to members of the opposition who are here tonight, you may be aware this is a cabinet meeting. If cabinet members or others wish to ask questions, they're more than entitled to do so without your gruntles from a sedentary position, and it's in the gift of the chairs to ask the questions. So I'll take your behaviour into account with further questions. Councillor Lethard.
Yes, I'll just clarify one point. Would you like the answer in pounds sterling or in Smarties?
I think it's more Jesus.
Oh, also, okay, sorry. Anyway, back to the serious point. When you ask how much the benefit is, it does presume that, let's say, another party will run the council and they will put up the tax like maximum permitted. Of course, we can't be completely sure of that, although previous precedents would show that that would be the case. Looking at it, ballpark, we froze the, and we're only talking about Harlow, so you have to look at the Harlow element compounded by the increase. So if you said it went up 1.99% or 2% first year, and say 5% for the subsequent ones, you're probably talking about £75, £80 saving, plus the 50. So £125, £130, or around that ballpark. I'll give you the exact numbers afterwards, but that's like the top of the head calculation.
If you've got further questions, Councillor, the only thing I'd say to all councillors is I'm all for creative weaving of questions, but they are supposed to be related to the reports in front of you this evening. So if you've got any further questions, keep them at bay. You don't? Very good. Yeah, Councillor Seals and that's Councillor Vince. And that's Councillor Bell.
Thank you. In the report, within the non-housing capital programme page, paragraph 15, it states 1.2 million is being reprioritised. What would be the impact of this investment?
Just while Councillor Leppard's looking at that, just paragraph 15 which refers to 1.2 million is being reprioritised. There's a couple of things I'd say. First is in one of the appendices, I'm not sure which one, D I think, which references any changes to the proposed changes to the non-housing capital programme. You'll see that it's made up of schemes which are no longer taking place, that have ceased altogether, or that are being reprofiled, or such things. But I would draw members' attention to the chart under paragraph 20, which shows the comparison in the non-housing capital programme over the last 5 years. And you'll see, with the exception of the acquisition of Hard Centre last year, which I'm sure we'll all agree was an exceptional circumstance, we are increasing investment as part of the non-housing capital programme into the priorities stated. And therefore that is the effect of that. There's nothing that's being reprioritised or where that money is coming from that would be an adverse thing to the town, or that it's something in need of funding which is not getting it, simply projects that are ceasing for other reasons, such as there's other parties taking those projects forward. So if there's anything like
No, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have spent quite a lot of time reviewing capital programme and the non-housing capital programme, and reprioritising and redirecting funds for them. So this is part of that exercise.
We had Councillor Ince, Councillor Durkin, and then Councillor Dunn. I'm also conscious of time.
I'm really conscious of time, Chair.
Full five.
For once you can't explain, you can ask the questions, but can I just ask, do you want to ask us a few quick?
Yeah, it's quick fire.
Yeah. So obviously, first one, if you give it a bit of detail, is about the insurance. My main is from page 20, page 21, which is you want to figure as well. So obviously, insurance up by 100 pounds, perhaps give the insights of why that is. Obviously, you've raised the issue of voids. Councillor Walter's not here, but he was quite concerned about the number of voices. It's one of the highest that he's seen in his time in the council. I just wondered, you said that the 500k value is not accurate. I wonder if you could give us a more accurate figure. You mentioned the £1.6 million that you're moving. Could you just explain where it's coming from? And the bottom line of the it was the in-year traffic pressure. Could you confirm, does that include a 600k bailout from the new home bonus that you've used in the last 2 years to plug the gap? I really asked that a little bit more, but you did say you were looking to do that again. I just wondered if that's included in those figures.
Well, given the time constraints, could you send me those in, and I will reply to you in writing. I'll answer all of them for you by Monday.
If I could ask for a time scale on that, and also for the chair's previous question, that would be useful. So if I could ask you for that.
I'll give it to you by close of play tomorrow.
By Monday, okay? But did you send it?
Well, I'll do that.
All right, okay.
I'll take it, yes, one.
Councillor Durkin.
Actually, my question has been related to our voids, so we'll probably get into that later.
I also had to cover that just for the sake of transparency in that the void figures are nowhere near the heights that they've been.
No.
They're significantly down from where they were. And as the report references, and hopefully you've seen other communications, the turnaround time on voids has significantly increased. We've had a huge uptick over the last 8 weeks in terms of the number of voids that have been handed back to the council and the time frame for that down to, as the report states, about we're in Q1 as an average of 26 days. So it's not right to say that. Are the levels of voids too high? Absolutely. That's why we're investing so much time, effort and money, amendments, business process and so on to bring those down and to speed them up. As I reported to the last cabinet, there's been a number of changes to the process and how we're doing that, and it's bearing fruit, without a doubt. There's a significant uptick, and as the numbers are shown there, they are speeding up. I think you also mentioned, just to cover the figure, the 500,000 or thereabouts that's referenced in terms of voids. As Councillor Lecott said earlier, that is down to a technical error in the budget projections. That's why that figure is as high as it is. That does not reflect the reality of the situation, which will give you a bit more on that.
Can I just add to that as well? On the voids, before, the average was in 2021, and continuing with our administration, it was over 90 days. Our peer group average is 12 days. We're at 26, so that's a huge improvement. There's still work to be done.
We're still on questions. Is that good answer? Councillor Dunn?
Thank you, Chair. Delighted to hear a few mentions of down patch this evening. I've been going back through my notes from the Waterhouse Moor Residents Association, well, is that here? For the last 18 months, so obviously a very hot topic, which you all know. Is there any time frame for the development? You can take that.
Yeah, as I referenced, and as we've well communicated, the Waterhouse Moor Residents Association is aiming to be on site in January, as in this coming January. Plan applications in at the moment, I'm sure will be validated. Hopefully swiftly receive plan permission given the long process that has been. But I believe we're at a position now where that is a very favourable development. And as you'll be aware from those meetings, the local residents are now firmly in favour of the development we're proposing. So January is the intended start date.
Thank you. I look forward to communicating that at the next meeting.
Councillor Vince, that's the last question.
Yes, but again, I'm probably sure Councillor Wilson did ask me to ask this question. I believe in the previous cabinet meeting, you raised an issue concerns about cost of living, on rent. You can see here, obviously, that there is an issue with revenue down to 519. I think a lot of that's still probably discussed with employees. I wonder what effect does it possibly have on that number in terms of who's paying the rent and what issue that might have to that final.
You'll be able to see on the website now the monthly performance reports in terms of KPIs, one of them being the rent collection rate, which I think off the top of my head still remains at over 98 or circa 99%. So there's been very limited reduction in that rate at all, which is a great testament to the officers that deal with that. Which takes us to the end of questions and on to comments. Are there any comments? Councillor Seals.
Yeah, considering the financial constraints faced by many other local authorities, it's really good to see the report shows our strong financial management of the council with more investment in 5 priorities. So that's also been a great review budget stuff really.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As the portfolio for housing, I'm extremely pleased that we've got 5 priorities. Mine is number 1. I'm not saying it's number 1. It's number 1 in the order. But because of that, we are investing a lot more money in the repairs dealt with, and also the leads. We are working with HGS. Hopefully, not only is repairs being done, but the standard of the repairs is going up. I think some of the HGS workers are actually looking forward to getting them done in a better way than they did in the past, and I think they're taking a lot more pride in their work. It's a great thing to actually see the repairs come down for the first time for a hell of a long time under 5,000, and I'm very pleased with that.
Councillor Hutt. Councillor Harlow.
Well, Stacey has said what I was going to say. I was going to say the obvious thing is to congratulate Councillor Leppard and his team, and in fact the whole council, for staying within their budgets in these difficult times. Not only that, we now have 5 key priorities, which we are allocating extra funds to, which is still keeping us within the budget. So congratulations, Councillor Leppard.
Councillor Ince.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself quoting Councillor Durfee when I say that we need to get a little bit real on this. You're right to say for the first time in 2 years there is a in-year subtractive pressure opposed to in-year additional pressure. We know that the last 2 years that additional pressure equated to £2.4 million. But we know that unspent is basically due to staff vacancies, and as yet we haven't really got any concrete answers, so I shouldn't use the word concrete, in terms of the impact that's had on services. So I think it would be very best truthful to say that we haven't had an effect on services. We have got a big budget variation in the new build programme, but that's because we haven't actually building it. And we can see from page 24, I mentioned previously, that the general fund reserve is down by £5.5 million. And HRA is down by £750,000. Unfortunately, this council is full of sound bites, including the one that take pride in our town, which I think is a political soundbite and doesn't have a place in this particular report, in a proper report, and doesn't have a lot of solutions. However, I do want to finish on a positive. Councillor Hardware, I'm publicly welcome the fact that Essex County Council are introducing LED light. It's only a shame it was 10 years after Labour and Lib Dems brought up the suggestion at County Board.
Councillor Burton.
I don't want to sound very cynical, but I think the difficulty is with finance is a marathon, not a sprint, and the difficulty is for you to be so glowing and slapping the backs of the shoulders of all those people. I think is probably immature and not in the right spirit of what they're doing. There is absolutely nothing to celebrate. What we are doing is actually doing what we are paid to do, which is to manage the resources, the limited resources, and the destructive resources that the government have given us to over this particular one. And what we shouldn't do, and what we need to avoid doing, is avoiding the truth. and Councillor Harlow said, we are in a financial crisis. We are in a financial situation. And we can blame everybody, and I don't want to make too much of a political but let's be realistic. You know, the finance is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not over. This is Q1. The big bad news is coming around the corner. And we will slightly on back if you get it right at Q4. But at the moment, I think it doesn't sound right for the general public, for you to be gloating about what a brilliant job you did. We would expect me to say.
Further comments? Councillor Leclerc? Want to sum up?
Yes, I think we are in difficult times, but we are showing resilience. And not only are we showing resilience and prudence, we are executing our priorities which are for the benefit of this town. And doing things like the Harvey Centre, which, okay, in the end, it had cross-party support. No previous council ever considered that. We've entered into the partnership, which will be spoke about anon. Again, a completely new venture, which will have lasting impact and benefits to this town. And I think to say today that we are putting the council in any way in jeopardy is wrong. We're very conscious of the challenges, but we also have means and are willing to take the decisions necessary to ensure we remain in the budget and achieve our objectives. Thank you. And I recommend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Leclerc. And just to sum up before we move to the vote, and to respond to some of the comments, I take great pleasure in the fact of bringing a report here this evening, which shows that the council is operating within its general fund budget. And I genuinely find it astounding that we have an opposition who, if we were not to be operating within our general fund budget, as they didn't for the large part of their administration, they'd be hitting us over the head and saying it's terrible. Now we are operating within inside our budget, and we're still being told it's a bad thing. And the thing about gloating about our success, I think it's perfectly reasonable to be commending the work that officers are doing to carry out record council housing repairs, to bring down a significant backlog that was built up over many years, to invest record sums into correct council events, restore pride in Harlow, which is not a political slogan, it's a council priority, or all the other things that we're doing. So I think this report contains fantastic news, and for once, something which I don't think I've ever done, and never propose to do again, I would agree with Councillor Durkin in that it is a marathon and not a sprint. And that the true outcome will be a Q4. But I don't think we will find many councils that are taking a Q1 finance report to their cabinet at this time of year in a better financial state than we are, whilst delivering on the priorities we've set out. So the report and the amended recommendations was proposed by Councillor Leclerc and seconded by Councillor Harlow. So is that agreed? Agreed. Very good. Which takes us on to item 11, which is the annual Treasury Management Report. Is that proposed? Councillor Leclerc, that's seconded. Councillor Carter, Councillor Leclerc, do you want to introduce that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, this report does look somewhat weighty and verbose, but that's primarily for statutory reasons. But the important points to bring out, which I've already alluded to earlier, is that we are managing our liquidity effectively. We have, you can see that the great part of our debt, long-term debt, is all PWLB loans. The small part, small short-term loan, which is being properly serviced and repaid from another authority. Our cash liquidity stands at around 33 million today, and that's invested primarily in, we have some term investments which are shown in the report based on recommendations from our employers. But we are actively managing our liquidity, prudently. It's AA rated or and above. So we are not, although we are able to switch very quickly, almost daily if necessary, from one fund to another, for yield purposes within the constraints of our risk weighting. We've managed to increase the yields we were getting from 0.5% per annum to now 5 to 5.5%. So this is a clear benefit to us. And again, that's the upside of the higher interest rates. That's it.
Questions? Councillor Post?
So, in the report, I just want to read the report. The report mentions scrutiny being their first priority, which, given in recent news from many councils across the country, it will give great relief to residents. But what does this actually mean in practice?
What it means in practice is, as I've tried to explain, is the quality and the risk appetites that we have. We are naturally conservative with a small c in this. And our first priority is security. So although we are now achieving much higher yields, there are better yields out there in the market, but they will not equate to our, or fall within the parameters of our risk appetite. So we stick very closely to the limits approved and the criteria approved by Cabinet before, and on the guidance of Harlow Coast, which means that our investments are all AA plus rated. We're not going into speculative investment. We're not using our money to go out and buy speculative investments such as happened in Birmingham, such as happened in Woking. No, we're talking about short-term liquidity.
The report, the war in Ukraine continues to keep global inflation above central bank's targets. So my question is, Treasury Management of the Council is a hot topic in current news, especially Birmingham and other local authorities, most recently South Wales. What does this report show in terms of how we perform?
What the report shows is if you really look at, in those terms, you're not really talking about the short-term liquidity, you're talking about the longer-term liabilities. And if you look at our longer-term liabilities, they are primarily, the biggest item we have is for housing. We've got a total debt just over 200 million long-term at fixed rates of interest. So none of those are impacted by hikes in interest rates now. Unless the only things that will be impacted is if we mismatched our, or we borrowed short term before for long term liabilities, so there's a complete mismatch in risk management, that would be very dangerous. We don't have that at all. Now, our long term liabilities cover long term assets, they're matched. And the only short term debt we've taken was a supplementary amount for the Harvey Centre acquisition. In fact, we used some of our liquidity, and this was an intelligent use of it, we used some of our excess liquidity to buy into the Harvey Centre, which is a temporary one, because at the time when interest rates were rising, and now they're starting to fall, we'd have been foolish to lock into for a 30-year period or so at high rates of interest. What we've done is used our short-term liquidity, so we've foregone Treasury revenue, which at that time was about 0.5%, 1% per annum. And we've foregone that instead of paying out 5 to 6% per annum. Now, when the interest rates come down, there will become a point where we'll need that liquidity again. And the market will change, the interest rates will come down, and that's the time we will lock into a longer term borrowing to finance the Harlow Centre acquisition.
Further questions? Absolutely.
Yeah, just a quick check. On page 42, it just says there's a drop in investment from 36.5 to 21.1 million. I just wondered if you could lay on speed to clarify that for me. Page 42,
That is, it's good that you raised that, because that's exactly the point I just made.
Okay.
We use those funds for the Harlow Centre.
Thank you.
Yes, I did.
Just to already answer. The other question, and again, as I say, we obviously support the postal department, so this is the expenses of a friendly question. But have we looked at the potential impact that the closure of the workplace site will have on, it takes the friendly question will have on the whole thing?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say actually, I should have said closing remarks of the previous item, you were suggesting that the reason for our favourable financial position was due to vacancy savings, and you admitted rather, the fact that it's also due to, or more at the point, that it's due to the increased yield from Harlow Centre, better than expected yield from Harlow Centre as a result, as a direct result of the decisions that we as an asset manager have taken and the expert advice that we continue to receive, which in terms of the ongoing Wilco situation is absolutely crucial. You'll be aware that there were a number of stores that were announced yesterday or last night for immediate closure. Harlow wasn't included in that list, but it's an ongoing situation. However, I would stress that should that happen, I'm absolutely confident about our position in that sense. And whilst there will be some short-term challenge as a result of that, I really don't envisage any medium or long-term difficulties with that as a result of our proven management of the Harlow Centre. Are there any further questions? Councillor Yelton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ephardt, on the number of years I've been at the council, its finances have always been highly security minded. Can you assure me that that priority is still given to that? We're not out there recklessly spending money like some councils have done and got themselves into a bankrupt position.
If you're asking me if we're planning to go out and buy a coffee chain or chain of pubs, yes, I can assure you we're not. Our investments are relating to our priorities strictly. And the priority that will require investment in that regard is within the context of the regeneration of the town centre. That is all explained where we have the Harlow Centre, and it's all in there. We are not going out buying anything outside those parameters. We have no plans whatsoever.
There have been no further questions, comments? Councillor Lips.
Just very quickly, apologies for it. It's good to hear say that we're not just blaming the war in Ukraine and COVID on the issues around inflation, and actually it does recognise on page it's 39. Page 43, the impact of inflation and the impact of our borrowing rates on the disastrous new budget, which was introduced by former Prime Minister Liz Truss just a year ago.
Yes, fortunately, given our liquidity position,
It's not a question.
Oh, sorry.
Didn't have to be.
Any further comments? Councillor Ephardt, you can start in response to the comment.
Okay. Well, I think in response to that comment, and a prelude to my summing up, I would say that fortunately, in this instance, we're on the right side of that interest rate hike, yes, in our liquidity, and the fact that our long-term borrowings are all at low locked-in rates. I think I tried to explain that and show that our treasury is well managed, prudently and strictly within the guidelines we've set. It's given us opportunities to be imaginative, and we've used that creatively and effectively in the acquisition of the Harlow Centre. So I recommend this paper for approval. Thank you.
There being no further comments, I'd just like to endorse the sentiments made by Councillor Ephardt in terms of the evidence of our strong treasury management, particularly against the backdrop of some councils which are facing increasing challenges as a result of their activity in this sphere, and commend the Director of Finance and particularly the Corporate Finance Manager as well as the Assistant Director of Finance for the work they continue to do on this with the support of Parliament Post on a day-to-day basis. Which takes us to a vote on the motion. Recommendation. No, it's just a note. Is that noted? Very good. Takes us on to item 12, Harlow, Gilston, Garden Town Joint Committee proposal. Your proposer, Matt. Councillor Harlow. Seconder, Councillor Lepard. Councillor Harlow, shall I introduce you?
Thank you. Members will recall this is a topic that's been discussed numerous times in the past. In fact, there was a all-member briefing last night, which I understand wasn't too well attended. To remind members, the Harlow Gilston Garden Town was established in 2017 under the Labour administration, following the government's confirmation that we would be a garden town and providing the seed funding. This garden town is unusual. Whereas most garden towns are new settlements, this garden town involves the development of an existing established town and requires 5 councils to work together. This has been done successfully for the past 6 years via informal agreement. However, as HGGT moves towards the delivery stage, a more formal agreement is needed, and this will speed up and clarify decision making. The scale of that delivery demonstrates why a formal agreement is needed. We are looking at some 16,000 homes being built over the next 10 years. Compared to the existing 36,000 houses, that is 40% growth. Crudely 4% growth every year for a decade. This will make the Harlow Gilston Garden Town area the fastest growing area in the UK for many years. We also have 172 million of housing infrastructure grant to deliver, the rolling infrastructure fund to deliver the sustainable transport corridors, numerous schools, a leisure centre, several community hubs and facilities, new roads, a river crossing, etc., etc. The Joint Committee is a formal agreement to enable the 5 councils to deliver the Harlow Gilston Garden Town. It is the logical next step in the evolution of the garden town and in the growth of our town. It will also make HGGT more transparent. As a new public body, its meetings in the future will be held in public with residents and councillors able to question the board members directly. It delivers an audit recommendation that there should be better transparency of decision making in relation to the garden town. If we approve tonight, it then goes to full council because it requires a change in the constitution, and I hope that members will approve it. Thank you very much.
Were there questions? Councillor Lepard.
Thank you, Chair. Will Harlow be chairing this committee? How's the chairmanship organised?
Once the Joint Committee has been created, at the first meeting, a chairman will be elected of the 5, and hopefully Harlow will be the first chair. But whoever is the chair then delegates that chairmanship to the independent chair, who then chairs the meetings. Is that clear? Is that quite?
That's very clear, thank you. But my next question on this is, I can never get my head around this quite clearly, that we've got this new town, or this town, so Harlow Gilston Garden Town, which for all intents and purposes is one town. In many respects, we can talk about the strategic transport corridors, the town centre is an integral part of it. But how is it going to function under 5 authorities? I'm sure there must come a time. Are there any moves to bring this under a single authority?
To answer the first part of your question, we've worked very successfully for the last 6 years under an informal agreement.
Yes, but it hasn't been built.
Sorry? The reason why we now need a formal agreement is because we are moving into the implementation stages. And I can't see why it won't work going forward. But it is very complex and complicated because you have 5 authorities, all with different aspirations and roles. So you have to commend the HGGT team for pulling all that lot together with the help of the political side as well.
Yes, Cyril, would you like to question?
Thank you, Chair. I understand there was an all-members briefing held yesterday, which I was able to attend. I just wanted to ask, will residents be given the opportunity to also partake in the meeting with the board when it's created and having a say as well?
As I just said, the formal agreement creates a new public body, which all of its meetings will be in public, and there will be opportunities for the public and councillors to ask questions of the board.
Councillor Burton.
Yeah, just sorry, I'm just looking at the terms of reference. I just want to know what legal standing does the committee have, and what weight does this carry on its decisions?
Well, it is a legal body. It has all the powers it needs as that legal body.
And the changes to our constitution in the first sense, also doing other councils' constitutions, will keep that happening as well. Councillor Carter, you have a question, Councillor Sanders, and then
I've got two.
others.
Two questions. First of all, as this is such a big project, do you have an experienced officer of the highest quality to be the 151 officer? Sorry?
Yeah. Well, no, the joint committee itself doesn't have 151 officer. It doesn't have any officers as a public body. It has resource allocated to it. In terms of the accountable, accountable authority, the accountable body, that today has been Epping Forest, who have been responsible for that sort of function, and that continues to be the case, even with this new arrangement. What is formalised, which hasn't been today, is that other partners' responsibility should anything go wrong in the accountable, with the accountable body in those sort of functions. So I'm not sure that's helpful at all, but hopefully it is. We have a further question?
My further question is, part of the Section 106 monies is to do with Harlow Town Centre regeneration and housing. How much weight and finance will be allocated to these areas?
Section 106 is a very complex area when we're talking about downtown, because a large proportion of the development is not in Harlow, it is in other council authorities. So they are responsible for negotiating Section 106. The Harlow Wilson Downtown produced an infrastructure delivery plan some years ago, broadly lists every element of infrastructure that is required across the whole town. And the first Section 106 agreement is with Gilston Villages, Villages 1 to 6 for places Peggle and Village 7 with Tame Limpy. So the draft of that was agreed at when the consent was given, and there is now negotiations going on. Our position in Harlow over the Section 106 is that on our list we've got everything we wanted. And I can let you have a list of there's quite a lot on it of what that is. And some of it comes from the town centre, some of it's to do with schools and the leisure centre and the STCs and whatever, but there is a long list.
Thank you very much, good to know.
I think Councillor Edwards next.
Yeah. The question around two things around opposition membership of the committee. The way it was explained yesterday, as I understood it, it was meant to be one councillor from each council will form that, or along with it, and then along with Johnson's, etc. the board. Whilst on the one hand I understand that these meetings will be held in public, I can't find anywhere in here where it lays out the mechanisms where either members of the public or opposition councillors can actually question what's and I would want the assurances that at some point that's going to be included.
Just conscious of getting to the question.
Yeah, so my question I have a question. Can we ensure that can we ensure that included within any constitution which is laid out how members of the public and the opposition councillors will have the opportunity to raise questions directly with the board?
Just on the specifics, then Councillor Harlow can answer this substantive, but the Constitution's laid out in the papers tonight. Wouldn't be the appropriate forum for it. As has been referenced, as the public body is publicly accountable, publicly answer questions, members of the public be able to attend in the same way that they can to these meetings, the scrutiny committee to call in any decisions that the joint committee takes, so on and so forth. But in terms of the thing about the opposition membership, what is being proposed is what has operated for the last 6 years. It's the partnership which obviously you set up, in that it's the relevant member of the administration that sits on what's been the board or in future joint committee. They are accountable either to cabinet or to full council in the usual way as any other decisions are. I don't know if you want to add to that, Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, when the Garden Town was first set up back in 2017, and I was on it with my county hat on, and a previous leader was on it, as the Harlow. They were basically, the board meetings were chat shops, discussion shops. There were kind of 40, 50 people all around a table, and nothing was really decided. So we took control. One of the first things we did was said that this meeting, or the meetings, had to be cut right down to, and it was recommended the 5 lead members from the 5 authorities, plus the lead officer, and then that would be the team. And then it was discussed about public accountability, and it was, and I think I've said it's the third time I've said it, that the board will be open in the public meetings to questions from councillors and the public.
We just actually look at what it actually says on page 112, because I think it's really important. Paragraph 22(1) says, meetings of the joint committee shall be open to the members of the public to attend, unless the joint committee determines it is necessary to exclude members of the public. Then it says, copies of the agenda of the meeting of the joint committee and any report shall be open to inspection of members of the public. And with the exception of any report which the Secretary of the Joint Committee determines relates to either pushing his or her opinion or like to be considered at the time when the meeting is not open to the public. If a member of the public interrupts the seat, but there is nothing in there's currently nothing in this constitution about how members of the public can raise questions. There is nothing in this constitution about how councillors who are not members of that.
I'll get the thrust of your question, so I'm going to answer it. On page 111 of the report, paragraph of the document, sorry, paragraph 21 answers that, and paragraph 22 answers the subsequent questions. So we're going to move on now. It does answer that. Councillor Seals.
Yes, just echoing Councillor Edwards' question, given that this is about the growth of Harlow, will this committee be chaired by Harlow?
We've already had that question, which has been answered. Councillor Lepper?
Yes, what measures will be in place to ensure, I mean, we hear a lot about the concept of the donut theory, and Harlow becomes the hole in the middle. What assurances are there that it's not there?
This is a topic which has been discussed quite regularly, in fact, the donut effect. And I'm quite adamant when we have the board meetings to discuss this, that the new bits must be fully integrated with the existing town. And there must be reasons, well, obviously there's reasons why the new people will come into Harlow, but there's probably reasons why Harlow people will go into the new parts. So there's got to be reasons for interaction. What we don't want to see is another Church Langley, which is viewed as a kind of separate village to Harlow. We want these to be fully integrated and part of the town.
there no further questions, comments? Councillor Burton.
As someone who's been around probably too long in your view over this particular issue, and I know that you've been very critical of me about my often quotes about evolution or revolution, this is actually about evolution. And certainly Danny Purton, the late Danny Purton, was actually part of this and took us on that journey. But the journey is very slow and it's steady and it needs to happen. It will have slow progress because we're actually bringing conflicting people together to try to find some united front that will get to a win-win situation. And you can't rush that, because the worst thing we could do is if we rush it, we will fall out and then we will lose the opportunity. There was a good question about whether or not this new structure would be the new governance of local authorities within this sector, and it has been debated many times, and it will continue to debate that in many times over these particular roles. I do think, in relation to this, I welcome the new way forward over these. I do think our scrutiny has got a good role to play, so that whoever our main person is, that they can come on a regular basis to give everybody a particular update. But the comment that the councillor on my letter, this is not about the growth of Harlow. This is about the growth of the geographical area up and including Harlow. But we have to get away from this concept that it's all about Harlow. It isn't. It's about West Essex and it's about Hertfordshire and how we can work together to achieve mutual success for the benefit of industry, activity, employment, leisure and pleasure. But it is evolution, not revolution, and I'm really pleased that we are taking that steady direction. So thank you very much.
Just before we come to further comments, I did tell Councillor Down that he had a question, and I was going to let him ask it, and then I moved on. So, do you still have a question, or do you have a comment?
What's the question?
Oh, right. No, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. Influence will the board have on future large-scale planning applications, and should their remarks then become material planning considerations?
Most of the Garden Town's activities in the past 6 years has been creating policies and strategies, all of which have been adopted by the three planning authorities and are material considerations. But every single planning application will be dealt with by the planning authority where it is.
Okay.
We return to comments. Any further comments? Councillor Griggs.
I was going to try and, obviously we're winding down here on this subject, so bring an element of positivity to the end of the thing. And one of your favourite things is to use this side of trying to talk the town down, so I'm just going to go up a bit. And that is with Councillor Harlow's reference to the donut, and that's being the centre of it. I'm just going to remind everybody that the centre of the donut and the jam is the sweet bit that everybody really likes, so it's incumbent on us to make sure that we actually fulfil that promise.
Any further comments? Councillor Harlow.
My reference to the donut was a ring donut.
It's a ring donut.
It's a ring donut.
I mean, it's just a bit of pessimism, talking it down. We all know what we know about
I can, sort of my earlier comments are not seen in a negative way. I can totally understand the logic of what the place is going to, and of course we have to arrive at a situation whereby we have some sort of organised relationship, and I understand that quite a lot of discussions come on to get to that. And the other thing that was really interesting last night in the presentation of what happened last night is this notion that nothing can be agreed unless everyone agrees, all of the parties. So there was this real sort of trying to seek, it's recognising that there will have to be compromises on occasion, but it was Yes, in terms of the evolution, it's concerning. This is the welcome process.
Thank you. Any further comments? No? Councillor Harlow.
Yeah, just a couple of points on the devolution. What happens to boundaries is nobody can really guess, but it will change in the next 10 years, I'm sure. But I'm assured that if our boundaries do change, they will not go across county borders. So, in terms of public engagement, then yes, I'm sure there's some more work to be done as we get towards having our first meeting, and I'll probably take that up with the board at the appropriate time. In terms of the donut, the future of Harlow and Worcester Garden Town is in the hands of the stewardship, how it is run, in 30, 35 years' time. And I've pushed for that because in most large developments, the stewardship is left far too late to the end. When in effect, it's too late. So we're pushing, and we're currently consulting on a charter that all the developers will adhere to in terms of there being an umbrella organisation to ensure that the standards of the garden town are maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment because I find myself again agreeing with Councillor Burton this evening in that this is not an overnight project. And actually this is a massively welcome step. I think it's one that everyone could recognise will move the partnership forward, and as particularly as we move into a phase of things being delivered. And the public accountability thing is enormous. Today, all the board meetings have been private behind closed door meetings, and that's not the way to run future development of 40% growth of the town, and that's why these steps are being taken. I particularly commend the Garden Town team and single out Measure for the work she has done to get to this point, particularly with all 5 authorities, because that isn't an easy thing to get 5 authorities to be changing their constitutions and get to this point. It's not straightforward. However, the only point I will pick up is that Harlow is in the driving seat of this. This is about the growth of Harlow. Whilst not currently the geographical area of Harlow, it is genuinely about the growth of Harlow and about the increased economic development of Harlow, the increased footfall, the increased revenue, the increased GVA and all the wonderful things it will bring. So, on that note, we move to the vote. The recommendation is agreed by the Cabinet? Agreed. Very good. Takes us to item 13. I believe that's Councillor Harlow to propose the markable whilst the full direction of confirmation. Yeah. No, we get a second of that. Yep. Councillor Carter, Councillor Harlow.
Thank you. An Article 4 direction is to remove presumed development PD rights, which all homeowners have. This is development that could be undertaken without formal planning permission needed. This follows a thorough review of the conservation area, the first of the new town neighbourhoods to be built in Harlow, and more conservation area reviews will follow over the next few years. This Article 4 is not to stop people building porches, conservatories and the likes. It is intended to ensure that such development is controlled and appropriate within the conservation area to preserve the character of the area. This is so the original design principles established by Frederick Gibbard are protected from piecemeal development. Public consultation has taken place and a number of amendments to the proposals have been made. As a result, e.g. the proposed restrictions on rear extensions that cannot be seen from the road have been removed. This does not stop house builders from improving or extending their properties. It sets out some guidance on what they can do, but will require planning applications to be submitted so that designs can be properly considered. The Council will not charge a fee for these applications. If approved tonight, this Article 4 direction will come into force on the 28th of October. All applications due to the after before election will then be considered using the management plan and guidance document as a material consideration. As is usual, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities has asked for details and could ask for modifications which can be included subsequently. The requirement of this consultation period is 1 year, so you all might remember that we actually made a decision in Cabinet a year ago. So this is just confirming that after the year. So I hope members will approve this tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Harlow, do we have questions? Councillor Pearce?
My question is, how does this report differ from any other article or also click on tackle substandard community development?
It is the same legislation.
How does it differ?
That wasn't
Okay, that's fine. So I've got another question then. So it seems pretty robust to actually protect one of our oldest neighbourhoods. Is it going to be run out across other neighbourhoods?
Yes, some other areas, don't ask me which ones, are being considered, where the conservation areas will be considered the same approach.
Very good. Councillor Leffer?
Does it not seem somewhat ironic, we as Conservatives encourage people to change their homes, expand them, extend the work, and now we're putting on these restrictions? And do you think that will be questioned by certain people who basically cause us to live in that area?
We're not stopping anything. We're just ensuring that what people want to do preserve the nature of the conservation area. So we're not stopping anything, we're just wanting to be able to see what they want to do to ensure that it fits with Gibbon's vision of 50 years.
Conservatives conserve what's best and change what's necessary.
He's been waiting all night to say that.
You've been well behaved today.
So you say do what you like, providing you do what you're told.
That's central.
Obviously, I've worked on visiting the council of Michael and some of the beauty that's down there. I remember it from when I was growing up. Also, would like more comment from you. I'd like that in the amended document.
Sticking to questions now. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Obviously, they've relaxed the necessary requirement for solar panels being on roofs and stuff. Will the same for charging points be brought in so that the charging points that face highways when you do that?
I don't think that's been considered yet, so I can't answer your question.
Further questions? One. Councillor John?
Yeah, my question is that this has been knocking around for such a long time. What's held it up?
It is actually the legislation. The key delay was that we're required to consult for over a year and to do face-to-face consultation with residents. So that's why it's taken so very long to complete.
Councillor Lynch, you have a question? Councillor Leffer?
Thank you, Chair. What was the response from the consultation that I'd be interested in giving in terms of numbers of people applying and those in favour of this or opposing it? I don't know if you have that data.
It's listed in the report, the numbers. Any further questions? Conservatism? No. Takes us on to comments. No comments. Councillor Lynch?
Yes, about no, I need to say, obviously, I had a conversation with the city council now, so I obviously represent my ward. Also had a conversation with the former council Bob Davis, who still has a keen interest in absolutely saying that we will always support this.
Very good. Councillor Sims?
I just wanted to say this seems to be another good opportunity to see that we are restoring pride in Harlow.
Short and sweet. Any further comments? Councillor Griggs, have you got a comment?
Not yet.
No? Merits of Conservatism?
I quite want to let you know.
I say Conservatism, not Socialism. Councillor Harlow, sum up.
Yes, thank you. This is the end of a long path, and I do hope that my colleagues will endorse it.
Right, in that spirit, can we see the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Very good. Which takes us on to item 14, the town centre north development brief. Councillor Harlow, proposing that?
Yes.
Seconder? Councillor Lockhart? Councillor Harlow, introduce the item.
Sorry, me again. This is a document to provide guidance to potential developers. It says what we would like to see happen with the land and properties within the north side of the town centre. It is a brief which conforms to the already adopted Harlow Town Centre Master Plan, SPD, Special Planning Document, but provides more detail. Although it is a material consideration when determining planning applications, it is intended to guide developers and owners, not to dictate. It is to ensure new development comes forward which is coordinated with existing consented schemes such as the bus station, Strawberry Star and other public realm improvements. This brief was consulted upon from May to June this year. It resulted in 15 responses, all of which have been taken into consideration.
Very good. Questions? Councillor Lockhart,
Yes, thank you, Chair. Prior to this, prior to the master plan, what planning framework was there for the town centre, particularly this part?
Councillor Harlow.
Thank you. There was very little because the town centre was taken out of the local plan by the previous administration. Hopefully with a view to do some kind of plan in the future. So there was very little, and all that we relied on was the previous local plan, which gave very little guidance. So no, there was not very much to guide people at all.
Councillor Carter and Councillor Byrne.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The northern end of town centre is such a state that the majority of people in the town avoid it. I haven't been down there for a long time since I just find it sort of really poor. This development, what will it do for this part of the town and how will it improve the footfall of people enjoying this end of Harlow town centre?
Well, to be clear, the regeneration of that end of the town is one of our key priorities. And this guidance will assist the owners and the developers and the investors to identify the opportunities that are there for them. And we know that there is a lot going on in the background, there are a lot of inquiries being made, so we are very confident that with this guidance, things will start coming forward in the coming months.
Councillor Byrne.
Yes, I've got two questions. The first one, would you agree with me that I think there is some obvious insight awarenesses about what people define as a town centre? Would you agree with me that actually we're sitting in the new town centre of Harlow and that we have shifted this over the generations to take in to the harbour centre and to the water gardens, and that is why we now need that plan to develop what we are going to do down at the redundant, which was the old-fashioned. And I think if councils still think that that area around Market Square is the town centre, would you agree with me we might need to do a bit more awareness training over these particular issues? And then I've got a second question.
I think the response to that is that the reason why the town centre shifted is because of what is there. If we regenerate the northern side of the town and make it attractive, people will start going back. And in that way, the whole town centre will become the town centre in time.
And just to follow on that one, I think it's also the misconception of what is thought of as a town centre. People still view a town centre as somewhere to come to shop, actually what we want to design is something around leisure, pleasure, opportunity, business and shopping malls. The second question, which was quite disappointing in section 7, is as a cabinet member, are you surprised and disappointed that out of a population of over 90,000, or coming up to 90,000, and the hundreds of businesses that we've already got in the town centre, and probably the hundreds of others that rely on the town centre as a whole, we only receive 15 responses. Would you view that as a good response or a disappointing response? And if so, how does that help the credibility of this report?
To respond to your first comments, in response to mine, I'm going to join Dan in agreeing with you in that, yes, Harlow is going to become a destination, not a shopping centre. I think most towns are in the same situation, most cities are in the same situation. High street retail is on the decline. So yes, I agree with you on that. In terms of response, I mean, Harlow is renowned, since I've lived here, which is only 15 years, of not traditionally responding to consultations. I think it's just in the nature of Harlow people that they don't. And we have said that we have had some consultations recently which have produced good responses, but 15 I would view as not being very good. I mean, we've already started trying to amend the way we consult, because at the moment any consultation is what I call reactive. It relies on people to respond to our consultation. And I'm a great believer of being proactive in consultation, i.e. going out and asking people their views. And in fact, I've discovered recently that we've actually done that with a consultation with, I can't remember what consultation it is. The residence survey, where we've actually had a company go out and be proactive in getting people's responses. I think that's the way forward we should be doing to increase the level of engagement from our residents.
Just to add to the answer is that consultation and engagement with the community is absolutely key. And obviously we've not done a good enough job on that for a long period of time. But we are taking genuine steps to address that. If you haven't already visited the aptly named Discover Harlow Hub in the Harvey Centre, which displays such plans and consultations, I'd strongly encourage you to do so, which is proving extremely popular with residents. Do I believe we're ever going to get to a point with the development brief where we're going to have thousands of residents responding to planning guidance for doing developments? I very much doubt it. But what I do welcome in this, whilst fully accepting the point made, what I do welcome is the response from the landowners in the area. And I'd be far more concerned if the landowners we're trying to encourage or push or do anything else with didn't engage. I think the fact they did engage and in the spirit which they did shows the progress that has been made with some of the historically more challenging landowners in terms of engagement in the northern part of the town centre. Councillor Rickles.
How do we make this meaningful to the people of the town? And if you walk around the town at the moment, and look at the Strawberry Star development office, so-called, it's a wreck. It's in an appalling condition. If you look at the dereliction of the town centre at the moment, it's a wreck. If you look at the plant pots.
I'm just going to press you for a question now because I'm conscious
Well, my question is...
I think we had the question at the start. How do we make this?
How do we make this?
Councillor Harlow.
Well, I agree, yes. The town is in desperate need of regeneration, which is why it's one of our priorities. And this is one of the steps towards making it happen. This is the guide to the investors, the developers and the landowners as to what they could possibly do, what the opportunities are, so that they can start progressing. It's only that that's going to cause the regeneration to happen.
Councillor Leclerc.
Essentially,
keep it to a question.
We've heard about the consultation. For me, one of the key ones, as the chair alluded to, is the responsible developers and potential investors, including the plans for our new partners. What was the response? Can you let us know from the existing owners and potential investors?
It's contained in the report, but I think I'm right saying illegal landowners did respond. We've got a landowners forum now, which is something we historically have to address some of those challenges. And there's enormously different engagement with the landowners than there was there previously. It probably picks up some of the sentiments generally about this is, I'm completely in favour of meaningful consultation. That's why we've just opened a shop to do exactly that, and we're reviewing the way we communicate with people. But as I said, I don't deem success of a document like this as worth thousands of residents that responded. Because actually all this is doing is giving a development brief based on the town centre master plan we've already passed, giving further guidance. But in terms of the success of it, I mean, a number of us around the table were at an event only yesterday morning with potential investors and developers who were nothing but enthused by documents like this, the Wood Town Development Brief and the success that that's brought. So I'm very confident about this. Councillor West?
I just want to come back to this. You've made lots of reference about the terrible state of, Market Square and so forth. So I understand that it's a terrible state. We're talking about Little Walk was demolished as well. Is this just another proposal? Because residents are really sceptical about this. I also believe that this has gone on for many years before our administration took over, that we started demolishing the town and leaving. Is this a proposal that will not actually come to fruition, or is it because residents are sceptical?
I've been of the view for some time that it's a chicken and egg situation. There are a number of developers in the town centre that have consent to build lots of things, but most of them have not started. And I think that once one of the bigger ones starts, all of them will suddenly follow. Talk about the market square and the boardwalk. That's all subject of funding that we have to generate those, and that is all going to happen in the next year, starting next year. So residents will start to see things happening, and perhaps that might be the trigger for the developers to start their regeneration.
Just further to that, I absolutely understand why residents are sceptical when we talk about town centre regeneration, particularly on the scale that we talk about it. But why is this different to every time it's been tried before or has been promised before? For a number of reasons. One, we have a very strong and clear town centre master plan in place. That was never the case previously. That's now there guiding developers. Subsequent to that, we have development briefs such as this, the Wood one, and so on, which are further guiding development, and the response is extremely positive to those. Third, we're now backed by a huge grant from government that will genuinely deliver things that this council will be delivering, coupled with the fact we are now one of the largest landowners in the town centre, which has never been the case previously. And I passionately and genuinely believe, but also know, that it is going to happen. The town centre is being regenerated. There is construction work underway as we speak in the town centre, which has never been the case previously. There are schemes consented for the council, which has never been the case previously. So in the next few months, residents are going to see this happening. And I think, forget the political divide, that is something to be wholly welcomed for the whole town. Councillor, I think you had a question.
Yes, in bringing this forward up, you just alluded to it there. In bringing this forward up, are there any lessons that we can learn from the German government, which unfortunately our friends adopted?
If we go back, I'm always not being.
No, sorry. I was saying, are there any, in bringing this forward, are there any lessons you learned from the German development? What development?
The Wood development brief.
Yeah.
Well, we have learned our lessons from the Wood brief, which in itself was a very good brief, and all the developers and landowners involved there have been quite complimentary of it. And in fact, they were there at the event yesterday morning and were quite complimentary about this one. So I anticipate that the same progress towards regeneration will happen.
development brief. 3 applications are in process at the moment, not for speculative development, but for development, which, if given consent, I am absolutely confident on. Any further questions on this? Councillor
So well, I guess once it's put together, yeah. So my question really was, it's a good development, but considering that we maybe have a change of administration in a year's time, will that impact or affect decisions that will be made?
So what administration change will that be?
Well, it's more thing is because time, Councillor Durkin has stated that it's a process of all the other things we're doing to the longevity. So considering that we don't want it to just be another proposal and nothing realistically happening, whichever administration, I think it would be nice to have that consistency to make sure that whichever, so it's not impacted. So is that something which, that is really my last question.
I'm sure that my colleagues over there, if they form the next administration, which is highly unlikely, I will point out, will see the sense of these things that we've been doing and allow them to continue.
Mr. Chance to comment. Councillor Sills, that you appear to be bathing in some form of nightmare. So to bring it back to reality, we did have a precursor, a trial of this for the previous 10 years. And one can only come to the view that perhaps they must disagree. So there was anything, any of these things. So anyway, there being no further questions, we come to comments. I may have stirred some. Councillor Durkin.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I am disappointed both in what you just said. Because actually I think it was a reasonable point, and actually it's about working in partnership and actually working in the best interest of our town. So for you to make such comments about it, I think is unfortunate. I would also, I'm not sure if Michael deliberately made the error, but you did make some derogatory comments about the regeneration team over a number of years. And when you start thinking that we started this meeting with Julie Houston, and the former head of regeneration, Jane Breer, and with Andrew in the corner, a lot of work was done by a lot of people to bring us to this particular point. So for you to sort of indicate the world suddenly was invented.
Councillor Durkin, I'm just going to step in. Councillor Harlow made no reference to the regeneration team or any of this work, so the comments can't relate to that, I'm afraid.
Well, I can. And I take it as a personal insult that you are criticising those people who were doing a good job at it. But I'm sure that was an oversight on your particular point. And in relation to consultation, there's at least one gentleman at the back there that remembers a reasonably successful consultation that took place at the town centre a few years ago called Tony's Tours, where we actually took the consultation out and we walked around the town centre with the members of the public and businesses to actually listen and talk about the buildings and what we want to do. So this idea that you again have invented consultation is unreasonable and unfair. I do support this because I've always supported it, because it's been my passion, and I think it's everybody's passion, that we need to reinvigorate and renew and regenerate our centre of our town, which is governance. But really, there's no credibility when I know that the leader said we'll never expect thousands of people. Well, no, we would be very excited if we found hundreds. But actually, you didn't even get 10. Because actually, if you look at the list of people who were 15, and if you take off the developers, Prince Alexandra and others, there was hardly anybody. So it has lost its credibility and its way in this particular way. It is true that the town at the moment is seen as demolition town centre, because you're right, you're knocking everything down, but you have not put 2 bricks together in the last 2 years, and that is the balance of what other councillors are saying about the proof is in the delivery. People will believe when they start seeing the buildings happening. And again, we need to make sure that we've got the joint message together together, because over the last 2 years, this town has been given misdirection and mistruth about the building, what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And actually, in the last 2 years, you have not put 2 bricks together. So I'm saying to you that I think this is the right way forward. I think we need to do this. There is the opportunity for the money to make that progression. And I hope in the spirit of this is that we can avoid the negativity from the leader and others and actually work into the spirit of partnership to deliver what we all want, which is an area that's fit for purpose. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that. Councillor Carlton.
Thank you, Chair. I talk to a lot of people around town, and they come into the Water Gardens car park, and the most they ever walk into the town is up to Primark. They don't walk farther than Primark. They do in the rest of the town. I for one would like to use the whole of the town. We can develop the northern side so that we can come into the town and we're expected to go all over the town, as I think it would be good, to see various businesses flourishing, coffees, cafe bars and all these sort of things. When it comes to what Councillor Durkin said about the last 2 years, to be honest, over the last 25 years, nothing's happened in Harlow. We talked and done and talked and done and talked and done and produced papers. Nothing has ever been built. Nothing has ever been built.
You're in a building.
We're 25 years old, this building. We're 25 years old. The water gardens were built, not really with Harlow Council blessing, but now maybe we might get the town centre built properly. 20 years on with nothing done. The last 2 years we've talked about things. This coming year we'll do things.
Any further comments?
Yes.
Councillor Lefford.
Councillor Durkin's spoken tonight about marathons, yet he's now expecting to regenerate the whole town in a sprint, and be a 10-metre sprint. We've achieved more in these 2 years than you talked about for the last 20. You never got to this stage. You never got to this stage. Quite frankly, it is almost demeaning to take advice from you on regeneration. Thank you.
Councillor Sills, and got a few others. Councillor Sills.
Just wanted to state that the town sentinel development has evidence that we are delivering in the region of our town, and I look forward to actually seeing that happen.
Councillor Edwards and Councillor Williams.
I welcome this in terms of the document and stuff. I mean, I think it's, if it helps get the town regenerated, that's fine. However, what I would say is we also need to develop now, alongside this, is a strategy for dealing with the town as it currently is. So, for example, I walked around with the town the other day with one of the officers. You go into the Strawberry Star and bits of it, and the rubbish is dereliction. You go outside the old Odeon cinema, and the bits of the council owns, and I'm talking about those planters, they're all falling down, and they've been falling down in a dangerous condition like that for months. You go into the town centre, we've got broken manhole covers. I was speaking to a woman the other day who fell down one of those manhole covers, and the officer was with me at the time. She had a bruise there because we hadn't secured it properly, because we hadn't dealt with it quickly. You go to where the new seats are, so it's all those blue seat things, and you find that they're not fit for purpose. One, they're already broken, and two, the way that they're designed, you've got weeds growing underneath them, you've got litter falling through them, because the rubbish literally just sort of goes through them. When we look at all of the closed shops and the derelict shops, there's no attempt at all to make any sort of frontage on that, was any form of consistent hoarding on that to make it look at least halfway attractive. So I would say that alongside this, so we've got this, which is saying where we want to go, and that's going to take a few years to get there. In the meantime, we need a strategy for the town centre management, and we need a strategy for some sort of immediate investment in the town to at least make it look half decent.
Councillor Vince. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, generally, obviously, from ourselves, we welcome this document. It's unfair to say this is a new document, and this document like this was worked on prior to COVID under a different name. We also welcome the use of Discover Harlow. It was a project that the last administration worked on in terms of engagement, not just with residents, but also with business. And was what really feels unfair by certain members of the IOT who are sitting here. So I'm glad that you see the sense in that consultation working with other organisations. Let's bear in mind this is a supplementary planning document, not being Socialist Party Georgetown, but it is just that. And in previous meetings where I've asked very specific things about SPDs, we turn around and say, this is an SPD. But I think we need to bear in mind what.
This isn't an SPD.
It's an SPD.
Development.
Well, it's a plan. So, it doesn't guarantee anything, and I think we do need to, heed the warning that Councillor Edwards has said next to me about the sort of short-term need to maintain our town. But a plea I would make to everybody, and I know Councillor Charles is not here, did some work on the health and wellbeing strategy, but I would make the point that some of the issues that we know we've got in the town and the town centre aren't just about buildings. And although we as a council may have limited impact on what we can do to support people with their mental health, with addictions, anything like that, we have a responsibility as a council to care for everyone in our society. So as much as we welcome, regeneration of the town centre that looks spick and span and lovely, we do need to recognise that we need to support residents. The residents in our town are really struggling at the moment, and it's all very good having these great new shops and expensive shops, but actually people can't afford them. They're not what good. So I think we do need to recognise that we've got to be, everything we do in terms of regeneration needs to be focusing on people as well.
There's been lots of reference tonight, but I'll actually say that Market Square, the northern end of the town, it's whatever way you want to actually look at it, is in appalling state. You just mentioned about, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the water gardens, but let's take us back a little bit further. We've only been in administration for 2 years, and as we said, it's a marathon, not a sprint to get these. But going back even further, right, if we go back, I can go back for many years, that we've allowed this town, in the last administration, to go into decline in our town centre. We've allowed the actual shops to move away. We've allowed the market to move away. So this I wholeheartedly believe and support, because we have had no regeneration for a long time.
Any further comments? Councillor Harlow? I think we're at the comment for projects. Councillor Harlow.
Thank you. Lots of comments there that need responding to. We'll start with Councillor Durkin, who reminded us earlier how long he's been around, and I do know you've been around a long time and involved with regeneration for a long time. So you should know that any property development doesn't happen overnight. It can take 2, 3, 4, depending on the size, 10 years to bring it forward. So to you to criticise us for not putting a brick on in 2 years is a little bit too quick. It's a little bit condescending. I did not criticise the regeneration team in any shape or form, and I didn't invent a consultation. It's been around a long time, I think. I've been in development for 35 years, and consultation was done then, so it's not a new concept, but it is a difficult one on occasions, depending on your audience. Councillor Edwards made a comment about town centre strategy. We have a town centre strategy. It's regenerated almost entirely, and that is going to happen, hopefully not in 25 years, but
probably in the next 10 years, but it won't happen overnight, as you well appreciate. My apologies, I did refer to an SPD, it is not an SPD, but unfortunately it sneaked into my notes here. And I hope everybody will support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harlow. Yeah, we have this wonderful juxtaposition of criticising whilst just about hanging on to the tailcoats of the progress that is being made. So I'll just cover off a few clarifications. I know there was a great plea made from the opposition about consultation, but I know not one of them responded to the consultation. To clarify what we have done in the last 2 years, and to be frank, I'd rather take advice off the turkey leading up to Christmas than off the Labour Party in Harlow about regenerating the town centre. We put in place a master plan, the first of which has been seen in Harlow as already bearing fruits. We've gone from one of the smallest landowners to one of the largest landowners. We've secured, and we mentioned this earlier, the best part of £45 million directly from the government compared with nothing in the previous 10 years. It's quite true about the town centre, including a failed bid for £10.4 million, in which they received nothing. There is a fantastic thing of chronological order about how you go regenerating, and guess what? That means you have to knock down what's there before you build. And that's why we are knocking down what's here in order to build what's coming. But to be honest, don't take my word for it. Take the fact we've won the last 3 elections in Harlow based on the fact we are delivering on regeneration, and I am abundantly confident, given your response tonight, we'll be winning the 4th. And Councillor Edwards referred to Eastgate, and someone earlier did say that the previous Labour administration did nothing in terms of regeneration, which isn't quite fair, because they did do something. And guess what? That's the scheme Councillor Edwards refers to. It quite is actually. The Eastgate scheme, brought forward with £1 million of advanced towns fund funding, was designed and approved by none other than the man sitting on your left-hand side. So if you have issues with the design of that scheme, I may advise you take them up with him.
And it's also they did run out of money when they were doing it.
If I finish my comments, you don't have any right to make. You don't have any right to make comments. Councillor Edwards, you need to finish your comments now, otherwise you'll be out. You were one of those that voted for that scheme, I'm afraid, in the form that it was proposed and designed. So if you have any thoughts with that, I would again advise them to take them up with your own group. What we instead have this evening is yet more progress on regenerating the town centre. I believe actually the people we wish to listen to are those of the town, those of the government who have strongly backed the work we're doing, those of developers and those of investors. But as has been said about a marathon and sprint, perhaps time will tell who delivered on regeneration in the coming months when construction continues to get underway. So therefore are the recommendations this evening approved? Fully good, which takes us on to another item of progress on regeneration, which I believe is the town's fund and levelling up fund procurement delegated authority. Is that proposed by you, Councillor Harlow?
Yes.
And the seconder, Councillor Leppard. Councillor Harlow, introduced.
So yes, we have secured in the past couple of years £43.6 million from government to be spent on various schemes across the town. This is a paper for delegation to be able to spend that money within the budgets as we go forward.
Are there questions? Councillor Blair?
I have 2 questions. In relation to this funding, why have we decided on 350,000 as the cut-off point? Because certainly with everything else that's been going on, with prices going on, are we falling short? And my second question, whilst we're rebuilding the town, would you agree in the last 20 years, where some people claimed nothing has been built, Clearly, they've never visited the Enterprise Zone, they've never visited the Rugby Club, they've never visited the Three Hills, which is in your ward, or at Clifton Hatch.
Just to answer both questions, the first is that £350,000 limit set out in the Constitution. And the second is we're talking about the town centre, so if you was to give your comments to that item.
The document says rebuild our town.
That's the corporate priority on which we are delivering. You are correct. The item is not about our town, the item is about delegated authority for town centre schemes. Are there further questions? Councillor Coates?
The report states that we have secured 43.6 million in the last 2 years on regeneration of the town. Can you confirm how much was secured in the last 10 years under the last Labour administration?
Well, let me think about that for a minute. Nothing.
What about 23.7 million?
You're correct, that was in June 2021, which I believe was no, that's not correct, actually. No. It was secured in June. It was secured in June 21, and actually the business cases were approved, I believe, in October 22. Councillor Harlow?
Thank you, Chair. What assurances do we have that these contracts will go out to the same quality contractors? We don't have to depart for other councils. Sorry.
Although the delegated powers to spend the money, obviously the procurement will follow the usual procedures set out by the council.
Further questions?
Yeah, if we don't agree to this and we stick to the usual practice, what impact will this have on the delivery?
Well, don't agree to this tonight. That means that every purchasing decision that 40 million would have to come back to Cabinet for approval. It would delay the delivery.
Further questions? Comments? Councillor
Sorry, the spirit of negativity that you've introduced into this discussion, I would have to say, Matt, it will be stupid for us not to agree this report that you have actually put into the area. Because actually, if we want to get Harlow sustainable transport going, Broadwalk and all the other ones that we want to do in the town, we need to start doing something rather than promising 2 years ago that there were going to be cranes on the streets of Harlow within months and everything would be knocked down and built. 2 years on, we still does not put 2 bricks together. But absolutely, it's critical that you report it, which I'm sure you will, that everybody supports this so we can actually get on and get the officers to do what they do brilliantly, leave the politics in this room, but actually get on and do what is required.
Any further comments? Councillor? That's right. Anyone else? Councillor Harlow, Steve?
I don't have anything to add, really.
No, good. Another example of a great juxtaposition of criticising while supporting, but nevertheless, can we see the recommendations approved? Approved. Very good, which takes us on to item 16. Another good example of delivery and regeneration. The Harlow Regeneration Partnership Business Plan. Councillor Harlow, you propose that?
Yes.
A seconder? Councillor Harlow? Councillor Harlow, to introduce it.
Sorry, it's me.
I find your voice very
So the Harlow Regeneration Partnership Business Plan, as has been said a few times before, well worth repeating, the Harlow Regeneration Partnership is the largest step made by this town and this council in decades. It provides us with the experience and capabilities to be able to undertake the massive regeneration plans that we have. We wouldn't be able to do it on our own. It is a joint venture partnership, 50-50, on defined projects, all treated separately. It is more straitjacket. Neither party is obliged to participate in any project.
and it's not exclusive. If we feel we want to do a project ourselves, or we want to work with another partner, there is nothing stopping us. The business plan does include an appendix with a list of initial projects to be implemented. As these are commercially sensitive, that part of the appendix is not available publicly. So this is another step. We just talked about the town centre design brief. This partnership is another step in the delivery of the town regeneration. And I commend it.
Just to clarify before we come to questions, if anyone wishes to raise questions about the confidential appendix or any of the details in it, I'm going to take that prior to the session, which I propose we do at the end of discussion on the rest of the answer. Councillor Carter, I think you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Hill are one of the most respected developers in the UK. Often they link up with major cities in the UK. How did we manage to get Hill to go into partnership with the town the size of Harlow?
We went through quite an extensive tender.
Sorry, Councillor Harlow, I'm not going to take any more countering from you, to be honest. I've had enough of it, so you need to keep your comments to yourself until you ask questions and comments. Councillor Harlow.
Thank you. We went through quite an extensive tender process where we invited 5 companies to come and present their approach to being our partner. And from those 5, we selected 2, and then down to 1. And that one was the Hill Group. And yes, they are one of the leading developers in the country, and we're very honoured to be their partners. And I'm sure they're very honoured to be ours.
Further questions? Councillor
Well, I wasn't what assurances have we got? Because at the end of the day, Hills is a private company. Fair enough, they're there to make a profit. But what governance arrangements are we going to have in place that they're not going to take all the areas that are more profitable to pay their shareholders and leave good old Harlow behind? And my second question is what assurances or what governance arrangements are going to be in place that actually Hills have to build or design something that meets our needs and requirements, not just to increase the profit to their shareholders?
The first comment is it is a 50-50 partnership, so everything is shared, so risk and reward are shared. As I said, it's not exclusive. We can decide which ones we want to use them with go to partnership on which projects. And even if we choose one that they don't want to participate, they can turn us down. There are, as you can see in the report, a kind of constitution under which we work. There's a board, and basically if either party disagrees with something, it doesn't happen. So there's always those checks and balances that if we feel they're not being very fair on what they're proposing to do or to take, we can just say that more.
Just for the sake of further questions, and given the time, if the answers are contained within the report, then I'll just direct you to the report. If you have a question about a clarification of something that's contained, so Councillor Harlow, if you have a question.
Yes, I understand we're operating under an LLP structure, but is it correct that for each specific project there will be a separate SV brief first? That could have, differing proportions of ownership should the 2 parties so agree?
Every single project will be treated separately, and whatever instrument or vehicle is used in whatever proportions is agreed in advance. And again, if we don't agree, we say no, we walk away.
What is the proposed, let's say, in a general, say for a typical case, if there is such a thing, say we go and buy a property, we go to agree to fine. The funding structure, is it true that Hill are willing to often put up, let's say, the funding, they've got very good access to bank base, whereas our contribution will probably be more the land itself?
Yes, Hill do financial backers and can provide funding if it is required. But again, it will be based on each situation as to what the proportions of the contributions are and how they're implemented. It will be different each time, so I can't generalise.
My point on that was that it could give us a lot more flexibility, because if they can provide, let's say, seed funding, it will stop us having to go out and borrow money. So we haven't got saying that's like access to capital that they. And I just wanted confirmation on that.
Yes.
Without in any way discussing the individual, just a question about the principle. In terms of there's a number of proposals made in the comments section which leads to the slides. Are those proposals being agreed tonight? Okay.
No. Councillor Savage?
This business plan seems a bit quick to get to here. Is this the normal practice in other partnerships?
The answer is no, especially when private sector partners are dealing with councils or public bodies. They usually take far longer. We've been very focused, and officers and politicians have both pushed this as a priority to get it done within a matter of months, whereas usually it takes up to a year to do. So yeah, it's not common. We've pulled our finger out.
So just to add to that has been commended by Hill, as a number of investment partnerships around the country, and as far as my conversation I can recall, we've been by far the quickest to do this. And to quote one of the members of the team at Hill, because we've largely done the work already. And that's why we're at a point where we're going to be on site delivering schemes this side of Christmas, compared to, say, Cambridge, who took a number of years to get on site with this. Question?
So are we saying you are running sprint or not running?
Well, the little sprint on this part of it, because the regeneration is massive.
Question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, this model, we've seen it used by other councils such as Bracknell. Why has Harlow never considered it before? If you were able to answer.
I'm not sure I can answer that question. I think that has to be down to the previous administration.
It's never happened. It's the long short look. No, it's true. There's never been an investment partnership. No. Any further questions? No, which takes us to points. Councillor Logan.
Sorry, and the gentleman by the side of you can correct you, but actually in our administration, we actually set up and was working on the principles of a joint venture partnership at that particular time. So for you to pretend that you invented the world, unfortunately, is your clouded judgment more than anything else over these particular issues. There are risks in dealing with a private company. We know that and we understand that. And I do hope that we have robust governance arrangements in, that we are not taken, that they then decide what they want, which will bring more profit to their shareholders to the detriment of the hard-working people of Harlow. I would say, as we in the Labour administration started that process and agreed that process, it would be very childish now for us to be criticising it. But if we can work with you to make it successful, we can leave politics in this arena and step out and actually deal what is required that's right and proper for us.
Just for the sake of clarity, just so it helps when anyone responds, you don't cite what you said at the start of your comments that you were on setting up JV. You're able to cite what that means, because I'm not sure anyone in this room knows what you're referring to.
And with whom?
Oh, well, I'm sorry you don't know what you're talking about, but actually it is factually correct. And if you go into the records in a minute, you will actually find it was the Labour administration, and I was taking part in that, and the gentleman next to you was also taking part in the discovery and the development of the joint venture. So I'm sorry, people's recollections are incorrect.
So you can't clarify any of the detail around this. What time frame we're talking about? I don't know what you're referring to.
Okay, well, I mean, it's 10 o'clock now. If you want to
What
adjourn,
brief
you can
answer?
go along and have a further
What brief
discussion over the
answer
next
is what
hour.
you're referring
I'm
to?
happy to do it. But what I'm saying is factually correct.
So
You
could
may
you just,
disagree with facts.
one word answer, what year?
Well, when did we lose administration?
2021. Okay. Councillor Lepard, comments?
Yes, Councillor Durkin mentioned that you were claiming to invent the work which would not need contesting. However, I think it's fair to say that whatever carriage he was driving, the wheels fell off.
Councillor Edwards?
In section G, which talks about the partnership work programme, there's a number of first detailed there. What I'm not sure is whether or not, is that for private discussion? Section G, page 297. Yeah,
We'll take it in private session.
The work programme is financed these things.
No, that's it. Yeah. We can take comments about that.
so we can take comments about the DHS definition plan.
Well, it's comments now, rather than questions.
Well,
We've moved on from the question.
Well, it wasn't apparent, because of the complexity of this debate, in terms of which is private and which is public, it wasn't apparent.
Well, I'm happy to take
answer.
questions.
Right. So what's the justification for the demolition of the DHS store?
There's huge liability on that remains in place.
And has that been presented anywhere? Or has that been presented out to the council in any written format? What justification is for that?
Well, as you will recall, actually, decisions of, in terms of delegations to the Regeneration Partnership are taken at March Cabinet Day. Such decision on that expenditure will come at the appropriate time. What this is proposing is what the work plan will look like over the time period set out. Which hopefully answers your question.
Just sort of seems to be that proposal comes totally almost out of the blue, as well as say. There's been no discussion I've been aware of within council at any time about the demolition of that DHS.
Well, perhaps we're discussing the proposal in front of you this evening.
So it's the first time.
Chair, you said
Councillor
Councillor
Davies.
speak about any particular issues.
We've already been through that. I'm sorry, missed it. Councillor Edwards, further question? No, in which case we move on. We can move.
Yeah, so Councillor, any further questions? I don't know further questions.
Probably good. Any further comments?
In terms of comment,
I haven't invited you to speak yet. Councillor Lepard? Oh, sorry, you've got comments. Councillor Edwards.
in terms of comment, I find this slightly gobsmacking, this whole process. So we have a proposal in here to knock down the VHS demolition, which doesn't appear, as far as I'm aware, to be discussed anywhere else within the council committee structure. I may be completely wrong on that, but as far as I'm aware, it doesn't appear to be. And I'm there, and you have the such proposal there, with no background detail, no justification, no whatever, you know.
Any further comments? Come to it again. Councillor Harlow. There being no further comments, come to you.
Thank you. Well, to answer that question, the document before you actually sets down the work programme for when the VHS will be assessed for demolition. To come to your, Councillor Durkin, your comments, Hill Group don't really have any shareholders, they're a private company. They're a private company.
Oh,
So, family owned. And also something which the officer has just reminded me of is that all of the projects that they get involved with, they pre-fund all of the pre-construction, pre-development costs. and then they're recouped through the whatever arrangement we have.
Very good, which concludes comments on the Harlow Regeneration Partnership Business Plan. Again, I think there's great evidence that we are delivering when it comes to regeneration as a council. We will be correcting the record over Councillor Durkin's wild claim made earlier. There was no public record of any search of formation.
You're accusing me of...
It's not your chance to speak, I'm afraid.
No, you just accused me.
It's not your chance to speak.
You have no right or responsibility.
You have no right to speak.
I find your comments offensive.
I'm afraid you have no right to speak. It's not true. Plainly, it's not true. The council is not seeking a joint venture, and I'll make sure that is a public record. This is a joint venture the council is entering into to deliver the biggest regeneration of Harlow that the town has ever seen. And I think it's something that should be widely commended. We've got to the stage of business plan in extremely fast fashion, and therefore our cabinet agreeing to the recommendations this evening. Very good. Is that the other items on the private session? That's very good. In which case, that takes us to item 17, I believe. That's been agreed. Communications from committees, working groups that are now, item 18, minutes panels, working groups that are now. That's version of business. There are none. We don't have to call time at 9:30 because it was 25 years in council. I'm sure you know that doesn't apply to cabinet. The meeting closed at 7 minutes past 10.
We were told that we were going to be given the opportunity to discuss things in private session. And then suddenly moved to a position where we're not able to discuss things in private session.
For clarity, there were no questions raised. The item's been agreed.
How can you raise the question if you're not in private session? If you've got a question that you want to raise about one of the proposals?
You want to raise it.
I did indicate it.
It's not worth the argument. I don't want people to know.
Voting, so we don't press the button to go on the thing, and you haven't got a good enough system here. And I plead with all councillors, can we get a decent system so that the public can hear both online and when they're here?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
haven't got to be in that. Thanks,
That's why I was very
Mine was a way close it.
As soon as it's
So, thank you.
Yes.
I think I won, I said,
So you said you got it wrong. Is that what you said? No, it didn't. So we'll next meeting.